So, okay, and then I see I can pause it too, right?
Karma.
Messed up.
Okay.
Now it's recording.
It's okay, I'm just gonna say it again. That we're here to talk about karma. Karma is a simple idea, but complicated. The word means action, and the teaching about it is two things. Actions taken now will have consequences later, and that's treated in Buddhism as an immutable law. There's no action we can take now that will not have consequences later. And the second one is that your experience of the world you live in, is a consequence of those actions. So it's an accumulation of all the actions you've taken before. And in the book they say that karma is the womb from which all our experience is born. So that right there is a pretty intense idea. You know, like God didn't make the world. And we don't all live in the same world. Everybody lives in the world that is the accumulation of their individual actions. So we're all in different worlds. It's a lot, right? There's a lot going on there. And I'd like to explore what we think about this idea. Yeah.
Are we recording?
Yes.
Okay.
Still out.
What you should have asked that earlier, because I did forget, actually.
Oh, here we go. Now we're recording. That's good. So, I want to talk about all of that. And by the way, even if you don't buy the whole notion of reincarnation in multiple lifetimes, karma is still a really powerful and useful idea. So, I'm going to take 2 classes to talk about karma. Tonight, I want to talk about how it works and sort of the reality of it. And then next week, we'll talk about using it as a path to change your life. So, but let's look at the chapter. And before I jump in and start talking about my thoughts, I wonder if people who read the chapter had anything they wanted to say about it.
They said they couldn't hear you very well for some reason.
Oh,
Not as well as they normally can. Is that?
maybe the microphone is not. I don't. Okay. Well, is that better? Maybe I'll talk louder. It's not. It should be on the Yeti microphone.
It's better. It's better.
Better. Okay. Good. Okay. Any questions or thoughts or issues about the chapter before we go? You don't have to, but I just don't want to. I want to give you an opportunity to say, well, we said this thing. I want to say that, okay, so let's come back to that, okay? The writer of this chapter, by the way, is someone in Wikipedia. They said that he is responsible for a generation of very fine, high-level Theravada teachers. And he was a German man, born in Germany, who fled the Nazis because his parents were Jewish, and went to Sri Lanka, where there was a German-speaking Buddhist monk. And so he went there and became a monk himself and learned to translate, and he was responsible for publishing a lot of Pali texts in German, and I don't know about other languages, but certainly in German, and training a lot of people and everything. So he's a very authentic source for this subject, and I really liked how he handled it myself. So, yeah. So again, I'm going to quote what he says, and this is on page 128 if you want to look at it. Karma is the womb from which we spring, the true creator of the world and of ourselves as the experiencers of the world. Through our karmic actions in deed, word, and thought, we unceasingly engage in building and rebuilding the world and worlds beyond. even our good actions, as long as they are still under the influence of craving, conceit, and ignorance, contribute to the preservation of this world of suffering. And what he means by that phrase, as long as they are influenced by craving, is that all suffering arises from confusion, from acting blindly. So there are actions you can take that are not gonna have suffering as a result. But those are actions taken with awareness. So we need then to understand how craving turns into confusion, and how confusion turns into actions that lead to suffering. So that's what I want to go through a little bit. So let's back up and remember in the beginning of the book, when they were summarizing the Buddha's basic teachings, this is what they said. They said, the Buddha explained that behind the cloud cover of emotionally charged thoughts, backed by entrenched habitual patterns, there is continual warm, bright, loving intelligence, constantly shining like the sun. This cloudy world of thoughts and emotions backed by habits continually churns out life's melodrama, which from the Buddha's point of view is sleep. According to the Buddha Dharma, everyone can wake up from this sleep. Everyone is capable of becoming a Buddha. Still having sound problems.
Little green lights.
What?
I'm gonna turn it on.
Is it on now? Oh, I know what happened. It came unplugged.
The wrong mic
Stupid
was,
thing.
oh, I see.
No.
Yeah, it's not a very connection.
It's terrible. There we go. That's gonna be perfect.
It was using the mic on the laptop.
Oh, okay. There we go. This is the way it goes. It's okay. It's Will's first night as our Zoom master.
You did a great job.
He's doing great. We're with you, Will.
He's noticing.
We're behind you, that's right. I know.
There you go.
So I want to go back to the word melodrama. I like that word very much. So you have the clarity and the warmth of a sunny, clear sky over here, and you have melodrama. And usually we get very engaged in the melodrama and the sticky details of who said what, and where did this come out, and who's to blame, and why did that happen, and right? It just absorbs us, all of our energy. But instead of that, instead of looking into all of that, let's just call all of it melodrama, okay? We don't need to pick out the details. We just know that it's a whole lot of sticky, gooey stuff that we generate, right? And we live in the middle of it. So Buddha here, melodrama here, okay? In chapter 9, it also says, the winds of karma only blow in the cloudy weather system of thoughts related to passion, aggression, and willful ignorance. In the endless brilliance of the cloudless, sunlit sky, there is nothing for it to blow. In open, unobstructed space of basic intelligence, karma becomes inoperative. The awakened one is victorious over karma. So think about that. Buddhas do not have melodrama. I just want to pause and think about that for a second. They don't experience melodrama. They're in the world. They love people probably. I don't know. They eat food, they sleep, but they don't have melodrama. Yes.
So you're saying all of their actions, none of those actions create karma.
That's
Is
right.
that correct?
Because they know what they're doing, because they're aware, because they're awake. They're not sleepwalking. So they don't do actions that lead to suffering. They know how to not do that.
I imagine people who are suffering bring their melodrama to them, and what?
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing. And we're going to talk about that a little, but I just want to pause for a second and think about a life without melodrama, without that suffering. It's really hard to imagine in a way, you know? But, so Buddhists have no melodrama, but why do we? Why do we keep on generating all this suffering? What does it do for us? Why do we prefer to be asleep rather than awake? What is that about? And so I have some theories I'll share with you. Some people have theories. Pema Chodron calls it fear. And she says we're uncomfortable with uncertainty. Better the hell we know than the alternatives, whatever they might be. So we become very good at doing the same things over and over again and sticking to what's familiar even if it's painful. And since the patterns are familiar, we become very attached to them. She even uses the word addicted. She calls it your storyline. So you have your melodrama and your script, which is your storyline. Other people call it ignorance. They're saying that, well, it's just always been this way, and you don't know any alternative. Like the image of the wild horse that's just running and you're just clinging to it without any control. No one's ever showed you anything else. So you just don't know that this is not the way it has to be. So that's the other one, stuck in a helpless position until somebody shows us other options. Classic Buddhist doctrine says that it's passion or craving. That's the underlying,
Passion
or craving,
or
craving,
Oh,
just
okay.
craving, just wanting. And that is like in Theravada, the monks work really hard at craving, at looking and catching themselves. So that's why they isolate themselves from married life, for example, or romance or whatever. They try to work with craving. And you could say that craving is like we don't want to be alone or something. It's part of being human that we, want to connect with each other or with people, even if it's dangerous or bad for us or leads to suffering. So that's the classic expression of it. It's craving. And recently our teacher on Sunday, Dr. Lai, he talked about, just out of nowhere, he started talking about DNA and some sort of biological imperative that it could be part of our genes that we just don't simply need anymore, but it's there to make sure the species continues. And so there's this we're programmed to connect and attach and do all of that. So it may be that. I think you could think about it yourself, and it's a good thing to walk around and think about. If I could be a Buddha right this minute, why am I not being a Buddha? What is it about this, familiarity is a really good thing, maybe? Or, I don't know. So let's put the question why kind of over to the side and think about it. It's something worth looking at pretty carefully. And now let me talk about how it happens, okay, how we do it. And here's how one teacher described the process. He said, the memory of our past actions evokes a habitual pattern. This is described in the Buddhist scriptures as being like the face we make when someone says sour, or when we think of sucking on a lime. Since we have already experienced eating a lime and tasting that sourness, when we just think of that experience, our face makes a puckered expression as if we were eating a lime right now. The habit is formed out of memory from that point of view. The memory of certain things is pleasurable and certain memories are painful. We often reshape our present situation according to that habit. It becomes easier to repeat the pattern again and again. Instead of starting fresh with something new, we can go back to what we've done in the past. And that is what we That's what we mean when we say that we are governed by karma. So we create this storyline or this map or this definition of the world, script. And every experience that comes to us, we fit it into that pattern. And if it doesn't fit into that pattern, we probably ignore it or abandon it or whatever, reject it. And we're always looking for things that reinforce that. We want to make, and I think this is sort of a biological skill that we have. If you think about ancient creatures out in the world having to figure out which plants are poisonous and which are not, that sort of ability to map and collectively remember things and so forth is a really good skill for survival. This is Dr. Lai's argument that it's biological DNA, but we don't need it anymore. Now we have labels from the food FDA about the calorie content of the food and stuff, right? And so we just don't need that anymore, that mapping, and we're still doing it because it's in us, but we don't need it. That's just a really good, I think that's probably true. I don't know, at some level. In the book, he talks about a treadmill set into motion by greed, hatred, and delusion. And we can't escape those emotions unless we step off the treadmill, okay? We keep walking on the treadmill of life because of an age-old addiction hard to break, the deeply rooted habit of clinging to the notion of I, mine, and self. So this is the classic idea that is currently talked of as ego in Buddhist teachings. That you want to have a being, a thing that you are. And so you do all this work to have that thing that you are. But it's not what you really are, right? We know that. You're really something else. We could talk about that a lot, and we will. But I think we could use the word habitual patterns instead of the word karma. So, we have the life we're living now because of the millions of minute-to-minute choices made from the beginning. And decisions that provided a kind of nest. Like birds gathering little bits of this and that to make a nest. We have been gathering things to put around us, protect us, and make us feel like that's who I am. I know who I am. And then guess what? Because all actions have consequences. There we are. We're going to live with the consequences of all of those choices. And if you remember in the beginning, the first thing we looked at what the Buddha said right after he was enlightened, and he mentioned the house builder. And we said that was like ego. And that is, I like this, all of this, the way we're looking at this tonight, because to me it's a very active process. And it's which means a lot of things, but one of them is that you're not stuck with it. You can just change right this minute and do something different. So, but that, the addiction is to the idea that I have this fixed personality that's going to be here forever and may even go into future lives, I don't know. And that's what we have to give up. We like it. We don't really want to give that up. So that's really a challenge. So, okay, maybe it's true that we do all this categorizing, constructing of a storyline and nesting because we feel vulnerable or afraid. So now let's think about what's wrong with that. I mean, what's wrong with creating something that comforts and reassures us? We can get around, we manage, we succeed, we get a job and we have a family and we do all these things. Doing that, so what's the deal? And this is where we need a Buddha to help us see the bigger picture. because that's the revolutionary thing he did, was he went under that tree, he said, oh, it doesn't have to be like this. There's more. There's something more. And all the suffering of all humanity could end right now if human beings would let go of their karma and move to the other thing. And why suffering was the first thing, this is why he had to talk about suffering as the first noble truth. He had to say, folks, you're suffering. Because we're going, no, I'm not. I've got my hut, I've got my food, I've got my kids. I'm doing fine, you know? It's like, no, you're suffering. You're causing yourself a lot of harm. And we can't step off the treadmill again unless we know we're on one. And it's hard to know we're on one because we're confused. And so once that confusion starts, how do you know anything, right? And then on top of that, because we're addicted to the melodrama, we really like it, we're extremely reluctant to let it go. We actually prefer the treadmill to waking up, because on the treadmill, we can pump away and feel very engaged and spend lots of energy, but never have to go anywhere new. We can seem to be living while keeping all the scary stuff at bay. And remember, nobody ever told us anything different. So our societies, all human societies, actually encourage the nesting thing because it works cohesively, you know, keeps a culture together. So societies don't say, hey, don't nest, you know, they're like, go ahead, nest, you know, doing good. So Buddha had to deliver this bad news that we're suffering. That's the first noble truth. That we cause the suffering with our own behavior. That's the second noble truth. That suffering is not inevitable. Something besides addiction is possible. That's the third noble truth. And that he has discovered a way out of the addiction, which is the fourth noble truth, the path. And these four noble truths open up all kinds of new possibilities. First, the power to change is in our own hands. We don't have to appeal to God or the powers that be, whatever they might be called. We can't blame anybody else for our situation. And in the book, he emphasizes that your karma is entirely your own. It's really each one of us, like I said, is in our own little universe. So that's extremely empowering, actually, you know. And then the second truth is, if we accept the first truth, we can step off the whole karmic treadmill. It's work, but a whole new world of possibilities opens up. And I don't know, I've never been in a 12-step program, but I was addicted to cigarettes for 20 years, for example, and I had eating disorders when I was a young person. So I know how hard it is to give up an addiction. So this is not going to be easy. And it's going to take a lot of work. And so the third consequence of accepting or working with the Four Noble Truths is that Buddha did leave us the detailed instructions for what to do. Not only, and we looked at this in this class so far, not only did he have the enlightenment and agree to teach about it, but I'm struck looking back at how he created the monastic system, for example, which preserved his teaching so beautifully. And he created the institutions that are still around today of people that get to be isolated and supported by their community to just work on these questions, these really hard questions, figure it out and share the information with the rest of us. So I mean, it's not just like in a book you can read about the Four Noble Truths, but it's like a whole system that we've inherited, and we can follow it and see what happens. So, and here, like right now, and here today, we have mentors, we have companions on the path with us, we have the books and the teachings, and I mean, it's just all laid out for us. So, let's go, you know? What's the deal? So that's where I want to stop talking now. Next time, I promise we'll go through the path in detail, the parts of it, maybe. Has a lot of parts. But what do you think? This was a lot of stuff, right? It's pretty wild.
This may seem a little off, but this, what you're talking, that Dr. Lai said, is very consistent with where I'm coming from evolutionary psychology and from Richard Dawkins, the selfish gene. Are these talks?
Selfish gene, yeah.
Are these talks that Dr. Lai gives, are those available on our, do you all
Yeah,
record
it was
those?
right, it's very, he's very funny because he wasn't talking about that, he was talking about something completely different, and he goes off on these little tangents. I can find it for you. There's a transcript of it that I can find and share with you.
Love that.
Okay?
There's also a book called Why Buddhism is True.
Mhm.
Yeah, by an evolutionary psychologist. I've read it once a year ago when I first got involved with this, and then, I mean, the more I've learned, I think I need to come back to it because I'm hearing the same pattern that resonates with where I can get it.
Right.
Okay, I would very much appreciate that
I will find
transcript.
that, I will find the Dr. Lai stuff, and we have a transcript. What happened is that he taught about this book. It's a very old Buddhist text, classic Buddhist text called The Way of the Bodhisattva. And we're still in, we don't have bodhisattvas yet, we're still doing Theravada, but anyway, he taught this in the beginning of when COVID was first happening. And we're reading the book now with him, and we're going back and listening to the talks he gave at that time. And I think there's like 120 talks, because it was COVID. He could sit there and, you know, he could say whatever came to mind about it. It wasn't like there was no clock ticking. It's really good stuff, and we're talking about it and together on Sunday mornings. Sometimes he Zooms in with us, but even if he doesn't, we have what he did each time. And so
okay.
the person who was summarizing the talk last Sunday said, well, he went on this aside about DNA. So we talked about it. Yeah.
I think he was indirectly talking about evolutionary psychology.
Yeah, I do too.
And it's that evolutionary psychology that built our culture. And it's our culture that keeps us trapped and keeps us in these psychological structures that tell us what we should value if we want to be a good human in a given culture.
Right.
There's a lot of headwinds
Yeah.
to saying, oh, that's really wrong.
Or we don't need it anymore. That's how he says it. We just don't need it anymore. It's not, we aren't
Yeah,
being
but it's-
chased by tigers. And I mean, it's like, it's in us,
Right.
but it's out of date, and we can.
But it didn't change the wiring to say we don't need it anymore.
No, we still have to change the wiring.
Yeah.
And there's a podcast that I listen to, and it's called Beat Your Genes.
Okay?
And it's by an evolutionary psychologist. The whole premise is, yes, we are wired that way. Our societies are set up that way. But as an individual, if we choose to become aware, we can beat our genes, but it's work. It's hard. It takes awareness and knowledge and support. Everything you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is,
Especially if you think about it, no one knew.
no one
about
knew,
it.
exactly.
No one talked about it, it's just like, I mean, my parents didn't even know psychology, let alone evolutionary psychology, so they raised us all, the way they raised us. But anyway, so what do you think? I mean, it's cool stuff.
I wonder if the words of Buddha would have survived had he not set up the institutions of monasteries. And that was a culture that supported the teachings.
Yeah.
And made it not just okay, but somewhat mandatory to behave consistently.
Right. Yeah, he basically, he created an alternative roadmap for society, that it stood apart, but it was also part of the community, part of the larger society. And in Buddhist countries other than the West, in the countries of origin, the monastic system is deeply embedded, and people, it's just really part of everything. As much as I would say in our world, public school or medicine or something is embedded. It's that way. Amazing. I didn't really appreciate it until I was preparing for this class, and we realized, Mick that looked it up with AI, that he invented the monastic system. It was the first. I assumed everybody had monastic systems back then, but no. So it's pretty cool.
Sure, we've got a question.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to look at
I
it?
can read it.
Okay,
I
read
can
it,
read
yeah.
it if you want. So this is from China.
Uh-huh.
Any thoughts on collective karma? Like systems can be harmful to some and beneficial to others. Do you think there is a difference when it comes to karma between actively participating in systemic harm versus being complicit or ignorant versus being an active activist
That's a
against
good one.
systemic harm?
Yeah, because, I hear what I think is going on there is the idea that, yeah, you have your own, but you do live with all these other people, and we live in cultures, and we live in a time in history. Tracks are laid down, we're on them. I don't know what to say about that exactly. I mean, it's a good question. It's a really good question.
Well, I think that, if you're saying that there's personal habits, personal circuits, or personal software that you're slowly shaping away from the selfishness and the aggression and so forth, then that's possible, but that's manipulable, that
That's
we
what?
can change. That
Manipulate.
we can
We
change.
can manipulate
Yeah.
it, yeah.
The fact that we can change means that we can also develop bad habits. So a culture like a country or whatever, if they're in a loop and they get more exaggerated, it conditions the whole conditions of the culture, which drags it along too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of understandable that there would be that kind of karma. If you're I was kind of nice to see karma talked as, not as some kind of cosmic, like punishment and reward for
Yeah.
being bad or good.
Yeah.
That was nice. And it really was focusing on what happens to you when you are being unskillful.
Yeah.
But when you're being skillful, in fact, it starts inoculating you from when you do make mistakes. It's not as, do you remember this part where it's like,
Yeah.
Somebody who's really quite wise and together and understanding and has worked on themselves, and if they bungle and do something aggressive, it's not quite as deep sinking and ruinous as somebody who's been kind of doing a lot of that to begin with, and they just
Right.
get deeper in the hole of their habits, whereas you have a kind of protection because you've been working like that. And so that kind of sense of karma being, again, not a bank account, but I kind of like going back to the neural pathway stuff, it's like habits of wiring. I think that there is actual things going on in your brain and circuitry when you do that, but I don't see why cultures would be immune to that either.
You gotta rewire the culture.
Yeah, you need to rewire the
Well, you
culture,
need
which
more
is hard,
groups.
but we've done
One
it.
person at a time.
No, but I was thinking about, my family of origin, 3 daughters and a son. me, I'm like this like nerdy person. I went to school first grade and read the whole book immediately. And the teacher sent a note home and said, tell her to stop. She's going ahead of the class, it's not good, right? Okay, well, comes time for high school and my family has enough money to send one person to private school. I'm going,
Right.
and no, it was my brother
This is a boy.
who comes out of it, you know, almost suicidal. What he learned in private school was how to drink himself into a stupor, you know, and his roommate committed suicide. I mean, it was just like a nightmare. And I'm not saying I would have done it better, but but I'm just saying, this is what I think we're talking about, that was the 70s. I graduated from high school in 71. It was like, yeah, the boy, he's gonna make more money, he needs the advantage, or whatever. And that's where it didn't matter what I was doing as much. I mean, what mattered is how I handled that situation. And it turned out, this is the fun part, the school that my father sent us to, the public school that the 3 daughters went to, turned out to be one of the very best public schools in New York. And so we had a much better, really ultimately a better education than my brother, but no.
But we have to remember, cultures are not an entity in and of themselves. They are composed of individual people.
Yeah.
Full stop. One person at a time. Cultures are merely a collection of people. One person, one person, one person.
But we're so much more connected now too, though, with all of our devices and internets and networks and everything.
Yeah, but we're still people. I'm not a culture.
Right, you're an
You
individual.
and I are not a culture. We're two people.
It's just with so much going on, it almost seems like you're seeing some of the same like network errors happening amongst
Oh, I
large
see what you're
groups of
saying.
people.
Okay.
Yeah, across the culture, like
Gotcha.
the whole thing, like is almost behaving like it could be an
Because
individual.
we've stopped thinking for ourselves.
And it's
I'm
just a
reading
knee-jerk
Fahrenheit
reaction.
451.
Right,
And
there you
I'm
go.
going, oh my, I had never read that before, and oh my God, this is enough to make me not want to watch YouTube stupid cat videos.
Right.
Pick up a book.
And surely we would never live in a culture where the algorithms were written to capture our attention and
Yeah.
take us down.
Right.
Right.
All the more reason I'm loving this class.
Yeah, oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, and the whole thing, right, that there is an EBS, that we all are here, is just like, we're so lucky, huh? We're so lucky.
Absolutely, that we can read and think and talk and roil it over and discuss it. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, and I also marvel myself at the combination. What we're talking about is the combination from this ancient insight, basically, to science. So the scientists are all over Buddhism right now, and they're looking at like we said, the neural pathways, and
Yeah.
it's like, and all these new things, you know, it's still blowing people's minds, you know?
Dalai Lama said if science shows us for sure something is wrong with Buddhism, we'll change Buddhism.
Change
Yes,
Buddhism.
exactly.
It's amazing. Yeah,
I have what I think is a simple question, it might be a technical question, and it might not matter.
okay.
So at the beginning of the chapter, talking about karma and action and this kind of summation of our choices
Right.
making up our world. And I'm taking along thinking this, okay, this seems maybe even obvious. But then at some point, and you read actually the section where the enlightened people don't experience karma.
Yeah,
And I'm left, so in that first part,
yeah,
I had equated karma to cause and effect,
yeah,
and this seemed very reasonable to me.
yeah.
And then I got to this spot where enlightened people don't experience cause and effect, and I thought, I think I have missed
Yeah.
So
Well,
it seemed like there's a mistake somewhere. Where did
well, I
I
don't
put a
know.
miss?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, what do you think?
So where I landed, but I'm not satisfied with this
Yeah.
position, is that karma, the beginning of the explanation of karma was this cause and effect, and this cumulative effect of my choices. But then somewhere in the chapter, I think the word shifted to have more to do with what you call the stickiness,
Yeah,
what you call the melodrama,
yeah,
and the way I tried to make the whole chapter make sense together was it had more to do with my own expectations of what the effects would be.
yeah. Maybe so, that sounds good. Yeah,
And so if I let go of expecting that the desired result would happen, I still experience cause and effect, but I'm not upset about it.
yeah, and the thing is that, what's important to focus on is whether the action is reinforcing your confusion and therefore making more trouble for you down the road, or whether the action is liberating you from that confusion.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Well, if karma is created by unskillful attachment and craving, the Buddha wouldn't have craving, so
Right.
he just wouldn't make waves.
That's right.
If waves means attachment and suffering, that makes sense to me.
Well, it would be like he was weightless. Gravity wouldn't really affect him in the same way as you or I. So if he's that enlightened and is that awake, then he's just not making karma waves. One way.
Yeah.
Are you enlightened, or do you know anybody that is?
No, I'm not. I know people who are awfully close or, look like, and it's a question, I think, rather than a light switch, it's a question of degrees. He sort of said that in the book too, in the reading, that I've been in situations where I marvel at the teacher just not being rattled. The rest of us going, lunch is late, The teacher's just like, and it's not, so I could say that, I could say that, I've seen a lot of that. But I don't know whether that means they're enlightened, but they're certainly less driven by their cravings than me.
Yeah, that's, I want to get back to what you were talking about I noticed that too in the chapter, and the way I interpret it is, so I understood the first part, I'm pretty human, I'm pretty basic, I can get that, I'm logical, but then when you start talking about not having karma, I said, oh, obviously that is so far above me, I'm not even going to try to think about enlightened and weird, whatever, it's like, okay, well, good for them,
Yeah.
I'm still down here in the trenches, and this is
Right.
where I am.
I think we come from a scientific background.
Yeah,
I don't worry about it, because I'm not there, but it's nice to think.
well, we'll talk more about how to do it, how to work with it, but you can see that other people, you're in the same party, you had a terrible time, and this person you were with had a great time.
You were there, you saw me?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was right, that's exactly right.
exactly, right? And it's like, you can see that it's all about what the effect
Yeah.
is on the person.
Yeah.
The same party. Anyway,
Well, so it could be then that karma is more about the effects of my choices on me.
On you.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
there you go.
that's right.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes sense.
And I think that what is a recent kind of realization for me, and a very important one, is how ceaselessly and energetically and actively we're creating this thing they call ego. It's a verb. It's not a thing, it's a verb. It's our favorite habit.
It's a process.
Like, me or not me, good, bad, good, bad. Just every single moment is engaged in that. And that's what you're making your world look like, is that. And if you make other choices, immediately everything changes.
probably a heavy evolutionary psychology piece of that, because back, 100,000 years ago, if you weren't accepted in a tribe, you didn't make
Dead.
it. You didn't
Dead.
make it.
Yeah, there's another little aside that Dr. Lai said in that talk where he said that if you think back to those people in the caves or whatever, they had to actually feed themselves all the time, and they were with their bodies, and they were, staying, it was like a constant, the struggle was different. That they didn't have the mental head trips that we have. But now, they weren't divorced like we are from our bodies into our minds. Still human, but that was another interesting thing to think about. If you're out, you have to grab every morsel of food. We have some time. What else?
I was reading something that said one of the definitions for karma was volitional karma, right? It's a volitional action.
Yeah,
So as long as you're not performing an action with any sort of volition,
yeah.
then you're all good, right?
Yeah, there's the other word that's used often is intention.
The intention
And
of
it's like, where's it coming from?
Like if you stumble and hurt somebody, that's not generating bad karma because
Right.
it was not a volitional action.
Right.
It's historically been hard for me so it's hard for me to say the V word you just said, like, I can't pronounce it. I don't mean
It's
that
such
in a
fun- such a
metaphysical
fun
way, I
word.
just can't say the word. It's always bothered me that makes it sound like inaction is always acceptable.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me to swallow.
But the inaction is an action too. Like that choice, you're making the choice to be
Yeah.
inactive, so.
That makes it more easy for me to swallow.
That would, ignorance would be in that category.
Exactly.
Like
Right, willful ignorance.
willfully,
Yeah.
like not engaging if it doesn't seem appropriate, but,
I really like that the rules are simple and very difficult to apply. And I'm completely serious, that I like that.
Yeah,
That when the rules become more like laws that can be
Yeah.
easily decided upon,
yeah,
we get into crazy territory.
yeah,
I like that the rules are difficult to apply.
yeah. Yeah, in the time that the Buddha lived, karma was science to people at that time. It was, I think he mentions that in the book, right? That it's like what they believed. But again, I look back on that and I think it was an incredibly rigid society. So you were stuck, there was no movement. And so that again makes what the Buddha taught so revolutionary. That he was like, you can get out of this, you can go do it differently. And when we grew up thinking it's all in our hands, in a way, anyway, right? It's up to me, self-made people. So what else?
Last night, my husband and I went and saw Nuremberg, and when you guys were talking about intentional inaction,
Yeah,
it made me think of that, because, the movie talks about Hitler's second in command,
yeah,
and of course, all the horrific things that happened. But there was so much inaction, right,
Yeah.
that took place with the general
yeah,
population,
yeah.
and nobody really stood up until millions of Jews were annihilated.
Too late, way too late, right?
Yeah.
It's hard unless you look. It's easy to look away, I guess that's the point. Or to be absorbed in your own little thing instead. I had a conversation with a friend where, when the Democratic senators, whatever they did, I was so mad, blah, 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 but I had coffee with my friend and her son is on disability and food stamps, and she was like, we can't, I'm gonna go get a second job so I can give him food. So we gotta open the government, gotta stop this, and I was so humbled by that. It was like, I'm sitting here all like, politically engaged, it's a chess game, and it isn't. But anyway.
To add to that, it's like, I don't know if, good movie. But that the decades before all that had a karma to it, it's like you were talking about how the culture, World War II and their defeat, and then the way that whatever the armistice or what they had to suffer through after World War I set it all up so that you can have a charismatic person talking about restoring, the nation's soul catches fire like that, so that suddenly it's easy to kind of like turn a blind eye to these things. So if you're talking about kind of broad karma in the sense of that, I've heard teachers talk about nations have karmas.
Yeah, they do.
As opposed to individuals, but it's so easy. It goes so quickly to like, well, hurricanes and tornadoes and mishaps and lightning hitting people, and is that karma? Is that, it's like, well, that was their karma to get hit by lightning. It's like, I don't see it. But nevertheless, it gets really kind of blurry if you take it to, I think, for me, it's like, if I really have to connect every dot, I like to just basically like, relax my own attachments and my own
Start with that.
aversions and my own
Your own
ignorance.
melodramas.
It's like, that's as much as I can really like work
Yeah.
with, I think.
That would be enough right there if we start
That's
with
the best
that.
that's all I can do really to be helpful.
Yeah.
is that,
Yeah, the Treaty of Versailles was so punitive to Germany
Yeah.
that it set up the domino effect of, so there's all this stuff always
Yeah.
complex type craziness. We humans like it,
Yeah. I have two things I want to say to that. One of them is that we're still living with the consequences of slavery, right?
Oh, yeah.
And what does that mean? It doesn't mean it means we just need to look at it. We just need to acknowledge that and work with it and not like, well, work with it, The other thing is, when I first started meeting Tibetan Buddhists, I was just horrified at what China did to Tibet. And they had 3,600 monasteries and they were left with 13. And that many monks and nuns murdered, their sacred objects stolen. And it was horrific. And then I started looking into it. And it turned out that right at that time, in the 1950s, Mao Zedong had created a famine in China. He had dictated a certain way that all the farmers would do their crop, and they all had to do it, and the crop failed. And so the Chinese people were eating their shoes and and grass and stuff like that. And here were the Tibetans in these elaborate monasteries with, resources. And they were angry and they came and took it. And so it just, to me, it was like, yeah, there's all this stuff. It's always complicated, And yeah, the Tibetans didn't cause the Chinese to starve, and then I remembered when I was a kid, your mother saying, eat the food on your plate, because they're starving in China.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, yeah. Anyway. Well. Yes,
This
Karen.
is almost like a public confession, but when I was in China and Mongolia in the 90s, I feel really bad because I got a chance to visit a couple of monasteries as a tourist,
Yeah.
and I was so stupid, I'm so arrogant, that I didn't understand their role in the community,
Yeah.
coming from my position where they were just mooching
Right,
off the
right,
community.
right.
It's like, oh, God, I look back on that person that I was and say, oh, I'm glad I'm not a permanent self.
she's gone,
I
thank
would
goodness.
change that, I would, I feel so bad about that.
Yeah, well,
Karma is trying to bite me
but
in
here
the
you're,
butt.
but here you are now.
I'm
Okay,
very,
look at
very
this.
contrite and
Here
yes.
you are now. So, who knows?
I'd not be here if it wasn't for that.
Yeah,
Here.
you never know. All right, shall we call it a night? What do you think?
This has been
Yeah?
a great class, Sharon.
Oh, thank you.
Excellent.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad. I was really scared of the topic. And so Mick can tell you, I spent so much time trying to, how do we say that exactly?
Right, because I read this, I mean,
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna start reading it 2 and 3 times. We have
After
the book club, or the Sangha that I'm part of, Sunday afternoon, 12-step recovery, we're having a book, and I'm reading the same chapter every day for 7 days. And then by the time we discuss it, I can actually remember something that was in it, so I'm gonna have to start doing that.
What book are you guys reading?
Right now, it's Sin and Recover, Sin and the Steps of Recovery, or
Okay.
something like that.
Okay,
But each chapter is 5 to 10, 12 pages. And at the end of each chapter is a suggestion of doing a meditation sitting with some questions that to reflect on.
cool.
It's pithy, it's short and sweet, and I can remember things.
It's helpful, yeah, good.
It just happened to be, that was the only book, we couldn't decide, we had like way too many choices. And it was the book that was they had 4 copies in the library, and that tilted
That
the
made it.
decision. Yeah, okay,
That's
4
fine.
copies, that's what we're doing.
That's funny. Okay, well, I'm gonna say my little dedication prayer. I keep meaning, I did put it on the Google Drive, but anyway. The teacher has appeared in this world. The teachings have illuminated it like the light of the sun. May the holders of the teachings be in harmony like siblings, and may the goodness of the teachings remain for a very long time. Yes.
Someday I'll get on that.
So thanks, guys. You can help put the chairs back where they go and all of that.
All right, I'm gonna stop recording.
Thank you.